What if I told you that in the 1800s, thousands of black Americans appeared in records as slave owners? It sounds like betrayal. It feels like an impossible contradiction. But the real story behind those documents will flip everything you thought you knew about American history upside down. Because this isn't about greed or cruelty. This is about love, survival, and the twisted ways families fought back against a system designed to tear them apart. You've heard the myth that free black people, once out of bondage, turned around and became masters themselves, that they built wealth by exploiting their own people. But the reality? Most of these so-called owners were anything but masters. They were protectors, husbands, wives, parents, children, risking everything to keep their families together. Ownership wasn't about empire. It was about survival. It was about stopping a child from being dragged away, about shielding a wife from the auction block. Imagine standing on the courthouse steps in Richmond, Virginia. Your daughter is about to be sold because her enslaver has died. You've spent 5 years hammering iron as a blacksmith, saving every coin. Your hands shake as you clutch those earnings, your entire life's savings. The auctioneer calls her name. The only way to save her is to buy her yourself. On paper, she becomes your property, but in reality, she walks home with you that night, safe under your roof. That is the hidden truth behind the records that listed black people as slave owners. By 1830, census data shows around 3,775 free black Americans owned nearly 13,000 enslaved people. That sounds like a lot, until you compare it with the more than 300,000 white slaveholders who dominated the system. Here's the difference. Most black families listed only 1 to 5 people, and those names were almost always wives, children, or relatives. They weren't investments. They were lifelines. But how was this even possible? How could a free black person buy their own family? The answer lies in the legal codes of the time. In states like Virginia, Maryland, Louisiana, and South Carolina, free black people could technically own property. And under the law, human beings were property. With the right papers, a free man or woman could step into the courthouse and purchase a loved one. But buying didn't always equal freedom. Manumission, the legal act of releasing someone from slavery, was tightly restricted. Virginia demanded bonds worth up to $1,000, more than most free families could earn in 10 years. Maryland required individual approval from the legislature. South Carolina banned manumission outright after 1820. That left families with a cruel choice: keep loved ones enslaved on paper but safe at home, or attempt legal freedom and risk losing everything. For many, the safer option was ownership itself. These acts of protection weren't scattered. They clustered in hotspots where law, community, and opportunity made them possible. In the Upper South, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Kentucky, larger free black populations and looser manumission laws gave families a chance. In Richmond and Baltimore, court records show free men pooling wages to buy wives and children at estate sales. In 1825, a carpenter named Samuel purchased his wife for $400, then bought his 2 sons the following year for $300 each. On paper, they were slaves. In reality, he had rescued them. In Louisiana, French and Spanish legal traditions gave Creole families more room to maneuver. Along the Cane River, the Matoya family became landowners and protected entire bloodlines. They eventually controlled over 900 acres and dozens of people. But those slaves were relatives shielded under the family name. Charleston, South Carolina became another center of protection. Black artisans, tailors, carpenters, shoemakers quietly used their earnings to purchase kin. William Ellison, a former slave who became a successful cotton gin maker, had more than 60 people listed under his ownership by 1860. Many were his extended family, kept under his protection to prevent their sale to strangers. North Carolina saw quieter efforts. Rural farmers and church congregations worked together, often buying one child at a time. Families spread papers across trusted households, so no single blow could wipe out everyone. It was survival by strategy. What did these purchases look like in practice? They began with saving. Every coin earned from night labor, every extra job in carpentry or sewing, was tucked away in secret pouches. Parents skipped meals, went without clothing, lived on less, just to build ransom funds for the day disaster struck. Then came the transaction. Sometimes a white ally or lawyer acted as a front to disguise the sale. Other times, free black men walked into the courthouse themselves, their names etched beside the words, "Bill of Sale." Their hands trembled, but those signatures meant safety. And then came the legal gamble. Families rotated papers between relatives, created informal trusts, or placed wives' names under children's protection. Each maneuver was meant to outwit laws that could strip freedom away. But the danger never ended. Documents could be challenged. Courts could intervene. A single torn receipt could mean a child dragged back into bondage. Families lived under constant tension, free in practice, enslaved on paper. So when we see records that list Black Americans as slaveholders, we have to look deeper. Yes, their names are in the ledgers. Yes, they appear as owners. But behind each entry is a story of sacrifice, of nights spent saving, of risks taken in silence. This was not complicity. It was resistance. Not empire building, but survival. Not greed, but love disguised in the cruel language of the law. The real story behind Black slave owners isn't one of betrayal. It's one of resilience. Mothers disguising children as property to shield them. Fathers signing bills of sale to keep families together. Churches pooling coins to rescue one life at a time. Each receipt wasn't just ink on paper. It was a scar, carved by a system so brutal that the only way to hold on to family was to buy them back. So the next time you hear someone say Blacks owned slaves, don't stop at the headline. Look deeper. Behind every ledger was a family clinging to each other. Behind every bill of sale was love in chains, reforged as protection. This isn't the story of Black masters. It's the story of Black survivors. Survivors who bent the rules of slavery into weapons of resistance. Survivors who refused to let their bloodlines vanish. And if this truth has been buried for so long, ask yourself, what other legacies of survival are still hidden in the shadows of history?